Thank you. Hi guys, so many thanks for joining today's interactive eConfig Cloud session. Just a few housekeeping elements before we kick off. We have a chat facility within Zoom. Um, Hopefully you're all reasonably familiar with Skype and Zoom and all the different collaboration tools that we use these days. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. Thank you, Steve. And we'll try and answer them as we go along. Or actually, we'll have, I think one of my colleagues, Russ Shadlock, is kindly covering the chat, so he'll try and answer them in the chat if he can. And then we'll probably have a review later on towards the end of the session, if that's okay with everybody. So today's session's mainly just to highlight the sunsetting of eConfig desktop. We'll run through a couple of configurations using the cloud version. We'll do probably a flash system. I might do a DS8, and maybe if we've got time for a bit of tape. And we'll show you a bit around the actual tool and what it is and what it does to try and get you a bit more comfortable with it. And I'll give you an update of where we are with the actual sunsetting of the desktop version as well. But without further ado, I'll just kick off shortly with just a couple of adverts. I always kind of stick these in when I'm doing an overview to partners, just to make sure you're aware. I'll go through these really quickly. We have a flash system sat in our BSC we use for partners. Feel free to approach us if you'd like to use it. I know some of you as partners might already have your own system on-prem, but if you haven't, feel free to have a chat with us. And also in the UK, I ask you to draw your eyes to the bottom right of this chart. Channel partners have access to a top-end FS9200 from IBM. So this is a fully beefed up system, and it's great for bake-offs to show what kind of performance IBM can deliver. That is IBM approved, but if you have any clients who really want to try and push the envelope on the performance, it's available at no cost, short-term loans. And again, say just approach us or your friendly IBMer, and they'll see if they can get that system out to you. Because basically, these systems are really well developed, and the performance is amazing. And why not prove it? Okay, right. We've got a few other things that are going in our tech team. We have a Cloud Pak for Data system sat in our Bracknell office. Also available for remote demos if you wish. We have a whole team built around this, and all sorts of offerings as well. If you want any details about this, I'm not going to kind of dwell on this for the moment, but if you're interested, just let us know. And also coming soon, we have a Cloud Pak for multi-cloud manager environment that we've actually got up and running, built on OpenShift. So if you have any clients that have wants to understand around what we're actually doing around multi-cloud management, Kubernetes, being able to govern those workloads, being able to actually see what they're doing, and being able to automate them. This is all actually built and spun up for partners to do that. And obviously, we encourage you to get your end users. We can actually set up your own environment to do that. And one final advert, I run a tech club every quarter. Last one we did was on artificial intelligence and football. I was going to have a bit of a theme around Euro 2020. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but we carried on with the event nonetheless. And the next one we're looking to do is around multi-cloud and management. I haven't fully decided what that topic will encompass. It's kind of more of a non-formal event, so we can basically do anything that we want. We don't tend to do the usual IBM slide decks. We tend to go a little bit off track. So in our last version, we had social distancing. One of the AI guys has actually created this app GIF you can see in the middle. And another guy had actually done some automatic player tracking, which I found was really cool. So it's just kind of an exploration of a bit of tech, a bit of emerging, what's going on, what the guys are doing. And as I say, we tend to do that quarterly. It was planned to involve a little bit of beer later on, but unfortunately that's not happened. Maybe in December, maybe if a miracle occurs, we might actually be able to do something in person, but maybe that just might be 2021. We'll see. Anyway, enough of the adverts. So on to where we are today. So this is the official announcement from IBM. I apologize for it being a bit wordy, but I thought I'd give it to you nonetheless. I will give you these slides at the end of our session so that you have them. The headlines are IBM storage August the 1st, power systems being September the 1st, 2020, and that's under evaluation. This is peeled from the actual IBM document, so you can make whatever assumptions you want to make, but this is what we're being told. So as for the 1st of August, econfig desktop will be no more. So, and there's a couple of notes further on that I kind of want you to kind of have a bit of a look at. The one in a bit further down on selected brands, sunset dates, the subject model will no longer be available to select with the econfig classic or update by ePadding. So it won't, it just simply won't update. The defects will not be reported, the prices will not be updated, and of course, if you're subscribed to the updates that we used to get around those will no longer take place. So what I'd say to you is if you're building any configurations, please use econfig cloud. Because if you're building it on the desktop version, we're only going to have to load it back into econfig cloud and then spit it back out. It will just slow everything down massively if you're using the desktop version on an old version of an old price list. It will potentially create a small nightmare for everybody. So I'd say please start to use the cloud version as soon as you can. So there's a couple of notes on here. The cloud version will be able to load the classic versions, so the usual CFR files you'd expect. Portfolios are not supported on the cloud, but of course you can output your portfolio so you have multiple CFRs and do it that way. You can then load it into your repository. Is it ideal? Perhaps not, but you can still have those access to those configurations if you wish to do so. I don't know too many partners who have loads of portfolios, but there are a few here and there. But yeah, the only way really to do that is to make sure that you're outputting those as CFRs and then loading them into the new tool. I know one of the sales guys asked for this final piece from me only last week. The list price search they found really useful. So there's actually going to be a separate application coming out. Obviously, this is American, says the fall. So I'm hoping that that will be mobile enabled, but we'll have to watch this space on that because that would really be quite helpful. Because I find that quite good when, say, like a new disc comes out or a new feature and you want to get a rough idea what the list price is, it kind of gives you a gauge. I find it really handy. Hopefully you do too. Okay. So this is just a bit of welcome to econfig on cloud. Some of you guys might have dabbled with it, might have appeared on one of these training courses in the past. Here's one of the access links to it. Basically, it works in most of the common browsers you'd expect. I tend to, for my personal preference, tend to use Chrome. Whether the other guys use Chrome, I'll let you know when they do their little bit. That's absolutely fine. So yeah, some people use different browsers. I have tried it on the iPad. It does work okay, but do I work on an iPad most days of the week? Not really. I mean, unfortunately, we're not mobile at this particular moment. Well, I know we're certainly not in TechData, so we're not traveling up and down the country. So perhaps maybe when that happens, that mobile kind of interaction will become much more easy, being able to actually do a configuration on a train, perhaps. But then it all comes down to your internet connectivity, of course. So there's a couple of usual features. It's very similar to the desktop version. All the usual items you'd expect are there. Create an initial order, create an upgrade. Manage repositories is one of the most interesting bits of it, because if you can actually start to utilize that, that does actually make your life a little bit easier. And if you're using another machine that you don't have access to your files on, so if you've got the say to actual hard drive of your laptop, it helps you actually get around that issue, which is quite neat and tidy. Of course, open local CFR reports. So if you've got older ones, say from existing portfolios that you want to load in, you can do that too. And of course, get help. So yeah, as I said, the kind of a couple of new items, the repository being the key ones. One of the neat features I find particularly useful is the inventory services. So rather than going out to the separate IBM website, you can actually do a quick load, which enables you to actually load straight from the tool into eConfig Cloud without going separately, which is great. Multi-session, I find pretty useful when I'm doing a lot of configurations. I end up with millions of tabs. I'm quite tab happy. So I keep on opening lots of tabs as I go along, and it makes it much more easy. Whereas in the desktop version, obviously you can only do one config at one time. Here, potentially you could do multi if you're really quite quick. So a couple of FAQs. I'm sure we'll have more questions as we go along. Will there be a locally installed version? No, it's going to be solely cloud-based. Can CFRs, files already been used in eConfig Cloud? Kind of already answered that, but the answer is yes. There's loads of education resources on this. IBM have been running these for quite a while now. They are run by the worldwide team. They are quite lengthy, in all honesty. So they do take a good while to view. But if you do have any particular need, you want to focus around a certain area, please let us know, and maybe we could help to accelerate that for you, rather than browsing through possibly hours worth of WebExes. But yeah, let us know if you want to focus on a particular area, and we'll see how we go. So one of the reasons why they're doing this is to make it a bit more slick. This is the IBM's full sales cycle, which they're looking to get to. Are we here at the moment? No. Predominantly, this is based around the storage elements. So if you've used Disk Magic or Capacity Magic, that is now being replaced by Storage Modeler or Storm. That then is also actually linking into the Impact tool, which is for your solutions assurance, which is of course what you should be doing all the time for your deals. And Impact now actually does link into Storage Modeler actually quite nicely. So if you've done actually a model within Storage Modeler, you can actually open up an Impact form for your solutions assurance. So we're starting to see some integration in between the tools. The idea is that eventually Storage Modeler will flow into eConfig and vice versa. And ideally, they're then looking to move Storage Insights getting involved as well. So you can see how that potentially could work. That it's basically gathering the requirements, the design, the pricing, the implementing, and the validation. So that's kind of what we're heading towards. Rather than repeating on different tools and different forms, that's kind of where we're looking to aim. Are we there at the moment? No, but this is kind of the grand view. As I say, we're starting to see signs of it in Storage Modeler, which I find quite encouraging. So far, eConfig Cloud is very much so a separate tool, but I guess once they probably got everything involved in it, they'll probably start to do some of the fancy stuff in between, which is good. Brilliant. Okay, so this kind of brings us to the main event of our particular session. So if Mark Biggs is on the call, would you like to share your screen, Mark?
Certainly will. Thank you for the introduction, Mike. Bear with me a second. So hopefully you can all see my screen now.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mark.
So this is the interface you get when you first log into eConfig Cloud, and you can log into that using your IBM Partner World ID. So as on the slide Michael mentioned, we've got create an initial order. So for creating a configuration for a new appliance. We've got the option to create an upgrade. So if we've got a CFR file we've downloaded from inventory, we can do that. Alternatively, we can actually directly import that from inventory service as well. Again, you need to make sure that the IBM Partner World ID for eConfig Cloud and your Partner Commerce for inventory services is the same, otherwise you might run into some issues. We've then got the ability to manage our repository. So these are all the configurations which are saved, and we can create folders, so we can sort those particular configs by customer, by date, or however you like to organize your configurations. If we want to open a local CFR report from a hard disk, so from a particular file, we can do that as well, so on. But what I'm going to first of all is go through and create an initial order and show you how to do that. So I'm going to go through and do a flash system. So where we've got our brand, it's going to be storage. And ideally what you want to do is select your most local server. If your local server isn't available, it will default to one of the other servers, or you can choose one of those other servers. It will work exactly the same way. And we can give our configuration a name, and we can go through and start that configuration. So as you'd expect on classic eConfig, you're still going to have your global settings. So what region of the world you're in, what particular country, and one of the important ones, especially if it's a new product, you want to get rid of those errors, make sure you set the correct customer requested arrival date. Your pricing options as well, and then we've got our software default options. So normally this is set to 3-year maintenance. Depending on your request from your customers, you can change that down to 4 or 5 years. And then we've got the option of whether we want to include TSS services as well. I'm going to leave that unticked for the time being. Okay, so once we've set our global settings up, we then go to choose hardware. So within hardware, we need to choose storage. Solutions would be ESS, but I'm going to configure a flash system for you today. So as you'd expect, this is very similar to the eConfig Classic. And then we've got our tape libraries, cloud object stores, data retention, flash system, disk systems, and so on, and SAN switching. So if I select flash system, this will give us a list of flash systems available for us to configure. And what I will configure is a 5100 control enclosure. So comparing this to eConfig Classic, as you can see down the side here on the left-hand side, we've got some options. So these options would be the tabs that you would see in the grey configuration box for the 5100 on eConfig Classic. So normally these would be cascaded horizontally and above each other, but we've just got a list down the side. And if we want to, we can jump straight to the ones that we want to, if we want to. So if we wanted to take off our disk retention, we can do that. We don't have to go through them in order, but I am going to go through them in order as an example. So quantity 1, I don't think we can increase that in here normally for a control system. Then we've got our summary, and we can see our summary here. Going on to the order types. So configure to order, there's no additional choices here. There will be on the config path. So the config path here is an indicator for all flash or hybrid flash. So if we configure it as an all flash indicator, we won't be able to put any standard spinning hard disks in there. Okay, we won't be able to do that at a later date either. So we need to make sure that we understand what the customer wants today and where they're going in the future. So I'm going to configure this as a hybrid flash system. So we can add flash and normal SAS and inline SAS drives. So going on to the shipping, that would be default, and we would always utilize the shipping. Again, it does say B5100, but it does refer to the FS5100 there. Then we've got our adapters and cables. So here we can choose whether it's going to be fiber channel or iSCSI connected, whether that's 25 gig, 10 gig, and so on. And then we've got the cables for that as well. So I'm just going to leave this at the 16 gig fiber channel, and I'll put our 8 cables in to support that fiber channel connectivity. Again, if we need any long wave SFPs, we can do that, and we can add those in. I'm going to leave them at 0. And then we've got the option to add in our flash core modules or our NVMe drives. So if I just figure this, in fact, what I'll do is I'll figure this as 20 4.8 terabytes NVMe flash core modules. Options to add in cache as well. And there we go. We've got the okay there again, so you can see that. So it's actually checking the config for you, same as eConfig Classic, and it's saying you need to add 2 of those in there. Okay, so you're still getting those same checks as you would on eConfig Classic. Then we've got our miscellaneous additions. We've got our VersaStack as well. So VersaStack indication if we can get an additional disk acts used on VersaStack. Again, exactly the same as eConfig Classic. And then if we want to add any SAN switches as well, we can add those in here. Normally, I keep these separate and add these separate anyway. But if you want to add them in the configuration of the flash system, you can. RFID if required. And then we've got our power cords as well, depending on what region the kit is being shipped to. Again, normally 9 times out of 10 it's going to be PDU power cords, but you can add additional power cords if you require. And again, we can add our expansion units. So because we've selected hybrid, I can add the large form factor enclosures and utilize near-line SAS drives. If we'd selected all flash, these would be limited. So I'm just going to go through and add an expansion unit as well. So summary, order types, and so on. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to skip straight to the drives, and we can add in 22.4 terabyte drives. Just edit that. So skip straight to the drives, check that we've got the 2 cables for connection to the controller enclosure. And then we need to go and make sure that the service packs are the same that we're going to select on the controller as well. So I've left it at 3-year 24/7. I've just taken off the hard disk retention. So as you can see here, we don't have to go through every tab. It's not going to force us to do that. Again, it's the same as eConfig Classic. It's got that flexibility. And obviously, when we check the config at the end, it will go through and check to make sure there aren't any errors. And obviously, it will make you go through and correct those errors. So any related software, I'm going to untick the copy data management. So you'll see those are probably added by default, copy data management on most of the configs now. So if that's not required, you can take that out. And then going on to our service packs and checking that I have taken out the hard disk retention and left it at 3-year 24/7. And then when we click OK, it'll go through and it'll check all that for us. So if there are any issues with the configuration, it would throw us up some errors here before we actually go through that. So here we've got our flash system now, and we can see that here. And we've got our expansion unit, and we've got the software we need to go in for the configuration for the expansion unit as well. So again, this would be similar to tabs, so disk virtualization or other storage software. And then we've got our product selections. And then you can see what we've got selected already for this particular configuration. I'm going to take off the proactive support because we don't need that for our customer. And when we edit the product, we can then go and see what sort of licensing we've got. So on here, we've got our base licensing. So we'll need to add some additional licensing on the controller. And then we've got the option of what software maintenance period we want. So whether that's 3-year or 5-year, 4-year. But I'll leave that 3-year. Click OK on that. Finish that. And then we need to go and do the same for the control enclosure. So our product selections, you may have to scroll up or down. So if they don't actually appear initially, if you scroll up or down, they'll then appear. So again, I'm going to delete the proactive supports, and then edit the actual software. Now, because we've got the full bundle here and we've got an expansion unit, we need to add another software entitlement for the expansion unit. And again, we can skip to the product preference and make sure that's on 3-year software maintenance as well. Okay, so we've got our hardware and software configured, and it's just a case of going through the critical messages, same as what you would have on eConfig Classic. So display, things that you need to check in terms of service packs and so on, and checking the software, which we have done. And then once you go through those, we can then do a configuration validation. There you go, it will give us our configuration and it's validated that. You may have seen some of the some auto saving going on while I've been doing this. So in case that you have issues and the web interface crashes, the configuration will be auto saved periodically. So if you do have a crash or an issue, you can then reload those auto saves. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save this in customer A. And that is saved there. Alternatively, you could give it a completely different name if you wanted to. So I'm just going to do that now. So if we go in and edit this. And we go to the drives. And put this up to 24 drives. It should ask us to revalidate our configuration as it does there. And now what I can do is I can save this as 24 drives. Again, I can save that in customer A. You can create a new folder from here as well. So if it's a new customer, and that's how you categorize your configurations, you can create a new folder and save it to that folder as well. So when we're doing this save and this save as, this is actually keeping our configurations in the cloud. Okay, so we've got our repository in the cloud. This is where we save our configurations. And now we've got a success to say that the configuration's been saved. If we want to utilize this and create a quote from it, we can export this. So there's several ways to export it, and you've got the options to what you want to have exported. So ideally you want a CFR, and depending on how your CRM system works and how you generate quotes depends on what other files that you would require. You can save these files locally. Again, you can create the multiple files, one for each type. I personally prefer everything being zipped into a single file. And then I can save them to my hard disk. Alternatively, if you was running, utilizing an iPad or some sort of tablet, or even it might be a somebody else's laptop, then potentially you might want to email the files rather than save them locally. And then you can email them to a specific email address, or it might be a work email address, or you might be sending them directly to a customer. So you've got the option to do that as well. And once we do an export, it will download directly to our download folder, what you specified for your particular browser. In my case, it's in the downloads section. So if I just refresh that, we can see that there. Okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go to the repository. So where you manage your repository within the config cloud. So you can see here I've got several folders. Fortunately, you can't scroll down all your folders, but we've actually got our pages of configurations and folders and so on. Okay, just going to go back into customer A. And here you can see the two configurations that I created just, so one with 20 drives and one with the 24 flash core modules. If we highlight these, you'll see there's an eye to view it and a pencil to edit. These icons are not functional at the moment. However, if you click the three dots, you can actually do a restore configuration. So if we wanted to edit this particular configuration and change the fiber channel HBAs to 10 gig Ethernet, we can do that. We can actually view the configuration. So we can actually have a look and make sure that the configuration is the correct one that we want to restore. And this basically gives you a text-based view, similar to the text file that you would get in eConfig Classic. And then you can scroll down, you can have a look, and you can say, yeah, this is definitely the one that we'd want to do a restore on, or no, it's not, and then we can go and have a look at another particular file. We can move the configurations or copy them to different folders within your repository as well. If we export, that is the same as we doing the download. So we exported this particular one with the 24 drives, but we didn't export the other one. So what we'll do is we can export that one now. And then we've got the same dialog box as what we had previously. So we get to choose the files that we want to export and how we want to export them, whether it's a zip file or it's an email, or whether we want to save them locally. And we can do that there as well. So we don't have to do a restore before we export it. We can export it without having to go through the rigmarole of editing the configuration file. One of the other things we can do as well is we can share the file as well. So we can share this file from our repository to somebody else who's got a config cloud. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add in Mike Potter. You do have to add in the actual IBM Partner World ID. And then I can mark Mike down as a collaborator, click OK, and then for some reason that's not working. That is your correct
yeah, that should be right,
payment, isn't it? Okay. So this definitely used to work before. Error during running share configuration Microsoft. Okay, so there might be an issue. It has been working before. I thought we'd be able to do that. Let's try that.
Mark, it's Russell here. Just to add in, that error you were getting about endpoint has been occurring all morning.
Oh, okay. So it might be a web problem then.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and obviously with it being a cloud app, you are going to run into issues down again. Let's try again. So if we can do that. What about if I put you down as the owner? No.
No, not today.
No, it seems to be an issue that we've got. Let's see if you've got anything shared with me. Okay, so I'm sure Mike has shared some stuff with me. Maybe we've got an issue with regards to sharing at the moment, which IBM are probably going to fix.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Mark, for that.
No worries.
Cool. If I just take the desktop back. Thank you very much. Okay. Thanks for that, Mark. So this is the main landing page that you get to when going to the configuration tools, and this is the main welcome to the config cloud. So you can see they've got a few events going, open office session if you want to speak to the guys who are actually developing the tool. Interestingly, I've actually just noticed this must have appeared reasonably recently, which is actually a daily report of any issues or items that they're actually looking to develop. As you can see, there's quite a few of them. But it'd be interesting. It's always interesting to see where they're developing in it and what they're fixing it. I mean, there's some medium, and there's some high, and there's some lowest of the low. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see what they're actually developing, and that is actually starting to ramp up more than ever before. So I suspect that once we have this transition to move, that everybody starts to use it, it'll really start to plow forward. So what I'll do a really quick configuration of a high-end system, just to prove that we can do one. Just quick, so don't completely mark me out for my technicalities, because I will kind of breeze through it just to kind of show that you could. I think somebody did ask, can you we do withdrawn products? Yes, and there's the checkbox at the beginning for you to do it. Same as the desktop version, you have to go back here to enable it if you've got an existing configuration. So I'm going to kind of launch through this as quickly as I can. So what I'll do a DS8, and I'll be ambitious and go for top of the shop. But you can quite easily see it's very similar to the way eConfig desktop is. What I tend to find, it's quite nice because it's a web tool. So if you wanted to search for something, it's quite helpful when you've got loads of, say if you're doing like a power system, you've got loads of HBAs or loads of disks and you want to try and filter it down, that is actually genuinely quite useful. Of course, with it being web, you can zoom in and zoom out, you can scroll up and down. You say if I wanted to only look for the 9-meter cables, it makes it nice and easy to pick them out. So there's a few bits that are quite, quite neat to actually enable you to do it. But essentially what we tend to find is that all the other features are the same. So if, for a Z-Link hyperlink adapter, you have to put them in pairs. So if I put that as one, I will get a warning at the end. Interestingly, when Mark went through it, he actually clicked on each of these labels at the side. I tend to just roll through with the arrows personally, but that's just a matter of choice. So you can do it any way you really desire. So, and again, it's all very familiar to us. The custom indicators are there if you want it. And again, you can kind of roll through all the kind of usual. So if you actually mirrored this on the desktop version, we were thinking of actually, should we show it to you mirroring the desktop version, but we actually came to the conclusion that you need a very big screen to do so, to actually get anything worthwhile, but it does actually match up. So you can see you've got your function authorization as you'd usually expect. And again, that's kind of loaded through. So if I wanted to add in Z services as well, it's quite easy to do so. All I would say is that when you're entering into the text boxes, because it's a web tool, the more you click, the worse it gets. So you just have to be kind of strategic with your clicking a bit more. But as per usual, you have your usual OK buttons, and you can roll through pretty quick. So here we've almost finished the DS8K without a lot of effort, to be fair. I mean, obviously that will be checked formally. See, I haven't done the host-bus adapters, which I've missed. So if I go right back to the beginning, I've missed them somewhere, but here they are. So if I put 2 in, and for a bit of, so you have to be careful with your clicking. That's kind of what I was saying. So put another 2 in there. So we've got long wave and short wave. Let me OK it. And it's just saying, well, if I want an expansion user, that's the usual pop-up you'd get within eConfig desktop. And then it's a case of finishing. Mark, interestingly, went through these one by one. I personally would always go show must read if you know what you're doing. Makes it much easier to do it. All of a sudden, I've only got 2 to do. Makes it much easier to start to kind of roll through. So again, you just need to check your software as per usual, and then go back. And then to validating it, you have your same diagram as you'd expect with the classic desktop version. So you can see your disk ranks there as per usual. You can output that again. I don't know if you can see that, hopefully you can. It says copy diagram to clipboard or save diagram to file, same as before. You can view your proposed within the actual tool as per usual. So you can see I've done best part of £13 million worth of kit. And again, you've got your messages and your diagram, and you can do whatever you like. And over here, you've got your usual menu item that you can edit however you see fit. And then here you go to global settings, that goes to the main screen, and then back up and through. So it's very similar to what we had before, just a few added extras. And of course, you can export, and as Mark showed you, all the multiple files. So what I'll do, I'll show you a little. So if I go to, if you want to open another tab, I can open another tab. So I've still got my old tab, and I've got my new tab. And what I'll quickly do, I'll do a local file, DS8K MES. Let's be brave. So I already got a file on my desktop. But one of the good things about, sorry if I just cancelled that, about this particular system is if you do know your machine type and serial number and country, you can just put it in here. And this works beautifully. Rather than going off to a separate area, providing your partner world credentials are matching and working, this saves me a lot of time. If somebody says I have to do a lot of MES upgrades, really helpful to do so. But in this instance, I don't have a DS8K serial on me at the moment, so I'll just do it as a local file. But it's the same process. So I'll dig out my DS8K. Here's one I prepared earlier. And it loads you straight into base edit. So as you can see, you have the usual functions and features as you'd expect. You can add them in, you can remove them, you can delete them. Be very careful when you're doing so, because obviously, unless it matches your inventory, your order will probably not ship. And of course, it'll cock up your MES that you've built on top of that. So what I'll do, I'll just validate this for the moment rather than edit anything. But you can see that actually you can actually view what we've got of our base, which is what I did earlier. So if I just validate that, usually takes an extra minute. I'll just say yes to that for the moment. But again, it's the same process as you'd expect that you have in the classic version. And now, because I've validated it, the start upgrade button has appeared, and we can start to upgrade our system as per usual. So this will now bring me to my same configuration point as where we were before. But when I look at my DS8, when I go into it, with me, you'll see we've got the base and the minimum maximum in there. So I've already got what I've already got. And then I can add my additional functions on top. So I've got 6 drive sets. If I add an additional 2, it gives me to the 8. I'm going to be lazy. I'm going to go straight to OK. Again, not the most technical way of doing it. I would prefer to check it all. But you can see that already you can get to the end of it reasonably quickly. So I always hear a lot of complaints that, is it faster? Is it slower? Is it slightly slower than doing it on desktop? Perhaps. But it shows actually you can do a reasonably sizable config relatively quickly. So there you go. So I've added in my additional pair, and it's already added on my software, which of course I need to check because you always do. But again, it doesn't take long to actually develop a configuration quite quickly. Okay. Jake, are you around if you'd like to do a tape configuration or a configuration of your choice?
Yep, absolutely, Mike. Just give me 1 second.
Brilliant, thank you. I haven't got a serial, unfortunately, on me at the moment. But essentially, that enables you to load it up from inventory quite quickly, which I find particularly useful.
So can you see my screen, Mike?
Yes, that's perfect, thank you.
Great. So once again, same as before, we're going into hardware, storage section, and an automated tape. Any configs log me out in the meantime? So if you do leave econfig cloud sort of idle for a piece of time, it will occasionally log you out. But if you're in the middle of working, as Mike and Mark have said before, it's constantly auto saving, so it shouldn't be a major issue. So we get into our tape section, and we will go with an LTO TS4500. So same as before, we can click down the sides. You can use the arrow to go down if you prefer. Personally, I tend to click through. So the summary tab is typically there to be visited last once you've finished, just to check through, as an alternative to just looking at the proposed text towards the end, which I tend to do. But first, so if we add some tape drives in, for example, we might want 4 LTO8 tape drives. Clicking through, just make sure all the feature codes and installs look correct. The features and service packs shouldn't be valid in here. Any drives been installed in the library will take on the library's maintenance. So fixing up our merge codes is fairly important on the tape. So we've added 4 LTO8 drives, so 4 plant installs there. If we were doing a MES upgrade, then we would be adding field installs instead. The quad drive kit, and then onto cables. So we have both sets of host cables and also these quad cable kits that we could be putting into the patch panel. So if we add multi-mode, 1 kit of those, we've got 1 4-drive kit and 4 host cables at 25 meters. Features, it tends to add in quite a few things automatically, such as the redundant accessor. So if you needed an HA library, I won't do that on this particular thing. So we untick that. Likewise, it's got all the capacity on demand pre-selected. It might be that you don't want all of this. In this case, I'm going to keep them on. Path failover for drive path failover in the case of things going offline. And since I've unticked the redundant accessor, I'm also going to take off the high availability library. Though we do have different support lines for the library depending on the drive generation included. So if I add in the support for LTO8 and LTO7, confused myself there with the accessor. Next, onto the attachments. Which operating system environment are we attaching to? There's certain things that econfig might bring to your attention depending on the operating system with regards to support. So where possible, it's typically advised to get this correct. The power, so we can add PD units in there. Also, we just need to make sure that we've got the correct cables included. If you don't select anything, it will select the country-specific line codes as standard. So I'm going to leave that. Media, we could add some cleaning cartridges on this page. So I'll add 5, but I'll also tick this box, which is then going to tell us at the end of the configuration how many slots we have in the library. Shipping features, just make sure that it's on the L5X1, which is charge features. typically things will get rejected with a no charge. And for completeness sake, I will add in a HDD expansion. So this is just for media only. Again, selecting the capacity on demand features and any PDU features that you might want to add. As before, you can add switches in at this point. Like Mark, I tend to keep these separate. And the console, if we have an existing tape library in the system and an existing TS4500, we might just want to say that we're attaching to an existing console, which I will put in. Any software that we want to add, and then implementation. So if we click on OK to finish that, on to finish. One thing, again, it's going to crop up if you've not done everything correct. So if we go onto the Features tab now and specify the L frame as the leftmost frame. So depending on which frame is left, the leftmost can only have a maximum of 12 drives, even though the frames are capable of 16. So if we put the S frame on the left, then we would be able to put 16 drives in the L frame, but this would make a difference on the number of slots available. So see, we've got 2050 slots. Again, clearing through our messages. To get to a point. So you'll frequently get CFR locks. So if you were to export these without clearing all these errors, they won't be able to be loaded into ePricer. So it's important to make sure that these are cleared off. Validate, and then we can check the proposed to make sure it matches what we were trying to do. So we've got our quad drive mounting kit. We have our 4 plant install features, our expansion frame, and our 4 drives there at the bottom too. I tend to, on top of putting in the repository, export this to my desktop also, just in case repository isn't working for whatever reason. So if I'll just save this to my desktop now. And you can see that the file name that you've inputted at the start is put through onto here too. And there's a quick, dirty example of putting a tape together.
Thank you for that, Jake. Marvelous stuff. Right, we've got 5 minutes left, so I'll quickly go through some of the questions. I think we've kind of answered a good chunk of them. One of the questions I did see pop up, is the search any good or helpful? It's kind of similar the way config desktop was, in that you can put your feature code in and then it'll tell you whereabouts it is. You can see products. And of course, I just searched something I knew that I could see right in front of me. So I do find it with the Control F. So if you're looking for something in particular on that page, I find that quite useful myself, especially when you've got like a list of loads of features. That's particularly helpful for me. Let's have a quick look at the questions. I think Russ has probably done a great job of answering them, most of them as we can. I'm not going to unmute everybody because that just ends up in sheer pandemonium, in all honesty. But if you do have a question, feel free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat and we'll see if we can answer them. Is it possible to configure withdrawn systems? Yes, I think we kind of mentioned that at the beginning. Can we do multiple exports? Yes. TSS, when it comes up to do the services for TSS, they come up solely as codes. They have 0 prices against them. But what our team have to do in TechData, we have another tool that we put it through, and that generates the pricing. So actually at a configuration level, we do not see the pricing on the services elements whatsoever. So yeah, if you want those to be done, let us know what you actually require, the length of service, and of course the service level of what you particularly need, and we'll see if we can add that on in whatever shape or form you need it. But as a configuration, you won't see it, you'll just see it as codes. Is it better at finding hardware and software? Kind of half mentioned that before. When you're in base edit, can you import a further CFR file we validate? As in, do multiple tabs? Is that what you're referring to, Terry, or are you doing?
No, what I mean. So somebody else mentioned about the fact that hardware and software have become kind of detached in the inventory quite often.
Yes, they
but it's
quite
the
often
same
do.
with tape. Quite often, if I'm doing a TS7700, the XSA components are missing when you bring them down. So you have to bring down all the individual CFR files and then go into base edit and bring them together and validate together. Can you do that?
I'm not too, what, so do you load in multiple CFR files? Is that how you do it? Or are you actually manually adding them in?
No, I'm pulling in individual CFR files for each serial number, maybe within the TS7700, or maybe it's the hardware serial number and the software serial number as separate CFR files for a DS8800, for instance.
Okay, I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head. I'll see if we can get back to you. I've only ever done it where I've loaded in one CFR file. As soon as I load another one, it will go over the top. So I perhaps I need to understand what you're doing a bit more, perhaps. I'll
screenshot it in the old version and show you.
Let's get a bit of time and we'll have a chat. That's absolutely fine. And we'll see if we can
Mike, it looks like you can do that. So basically, I think what that person's on about is whether you can merge during importing the CFRs. So you import one CFR file into base edit, and then you can import another one, and it merges the two files together. It looks like you can do that.
Okay.
Are you able to share your screen, Mark, or are you?
Yeah,
it's something that you know. Are you trying it now? Might as well show it if we can. It's not something I tend to, because for us, obviously we tend to, I don't know, not tend to do as many base edits as possible. So obviously it just creates a lot of issues. But obviously for 7700s, I can see why that would be a factor.
Yeah, and you normally have to do this quite a lot if you're doing tape upgrades as well, because
tapes.
The numbers are on different CFRs. Yeah. So I've got a CFR here, and then we've got the option to add in another CFR. So I'll just import that one there at the same time. That should add that one in as well. There's a serial number for that one.
Okay.
Okay, so you can do that, and you can validate that and go through it and so on.
Does that help, Terry?
I think you went too fast for one, but okay. Knowing that you can do it, it's just a case of finding the.
Yes. Well, the thing is, you have the same. It's the same process as what you have on the desktop version. It's just done within the cloud. So, yes, you'll have the same, I suppose, issues that you had before. Unfortunately, tape inventory is never the best.
No.
As we all know, it's probably the worst one. Fine. What else have we got in the questions? Software on the inventory. I think that's kind of it. Is there a link to the config cloud to the solutions assurance? No, there's not. But I can give you the. It's basically the impact tool. So I can give you the details for the impact tool if you wish, or we can set up a session to run through impact because it is quite important, and it does, certainly from a technical pre-sales point of view, it is absolutely essential. Brilliant. Okay. If anybody has any further questions, please let us know. What I'll do, I'll drop out a email after this session just to run through and give you the links, and of course the presentation deck, so you have those information for you. But I think we're just about to run over. I said we wouldn't. So thank you for your time, guys. Happy to have further sessions if you wish to do so. This is going to be something that's going to be with us for quite some time. But thank you for your time, guys, and speak to you soon. Bye-bye.